We got some more questions related to sermons from April 14th and April 21st. These two sermons were both from Ephesians 5 about marriage in the relationship between wives and husbands. The emphasis in those sermons, as on all the sermons in these recent weeks, has been on mutual submission, wives to husbands, husbands to wives in the form of self-sacrificial love. So here's one of two questions that came in late about those sermons, this one in particular about husbands and wives. I've heard this sermon a couple dozen times throughout my life, and I know what I'm supposed to do in relation to submission to God and to my wife, etc. But I'm unclear how that looks like. What does submission to my wife look like as the head of the household? This is something I've often wondered about many things in the scriptures. I know the what, but I don't know the how. So, a very important question that kind of goes to the heart of the loss of discipleship in the church. When we hear sermons about things, we're necessarily kind of at a high altitude flyover of a topic. No matter how detailed a sermon is, it cannot cover all of the questions that people have, and really never should cover all of those things. My sermons are long enough. So the necessity in the life of the church is for shoulder-to-shoulder relationships among people, where we're talking about the sermons and we're interacting about them. We're also living life together. And so that's one aspect of church life that this question gets to. An over-reliance on preaching as the main form of discipleship. Preaching is not really that good for most discipleship. Preaching is very important for the life of the church, but in individual life, we need each other. So here's a couple of ideas about this that I would just say more shoulder to shoulder. This isn't really a theological answer, but it goes more to the question of how. What do we do as husbands in relation to our wives? So here's how I think of this. I'm a musician, but you could take this as an analogy to learning a sport or a craft or a trade or anything that you do that puts you in direct, close contact with something, and you need to have a good outcome. So as a musician, I find that I need to become very intimate with my instrument and with my body in relationship to my instrument. And so that requires me to learn my violin as much as I learn the notes of the music that I'm trying to play, to learn my bow in relation to the violin, to learn how my hands and arms and shoulders and my breathing, how all of that fits together with my instrument. Because my instrument's unique. That's the thing about violins. They're all individual. They have quirks. They have unique qualities to them, unique strengths and unique limitations. And so as a violinist, you're as much learning how the instrument produces the sounds and how you, in interacting with that instrument, produce those sounds. You're as much learning all of those unique things as you are the notes on a sheet of music that is mass-produced for every musician to read from. So we got our Bibles, and the Bibles tell us what to do. The sermons tell us what to do. In the how, the most important thing I would say is know your wife. Know her intimately. And for me, that starts with saying that even after 30, how many years is it? It's like 32 years of marriage. I don't even know how long I've been married. I don't know my wife well enough. I need to know her more. There's more to understand about her because she's a different person, having gone through all sorts of experiences in life. She's a different person, having given birth to two two boys who became young men. She's a different person, having endured me for all of those years. And so there's always something for me to learn about her as I become more intimately acquainted with who she is. I really think that marriage partnership starts there. That with me as the head, I am to be the initiator of opening up and opening her up and wanting to know more about what she is experiencing and how she is processing that. And so I'm constantly in a place of needing to earn trust. I'm not at the same place I was in year 1 or year 10, that's good. But I still have to earn trust on all sorts of things that we're facing right now. And so I think the place to start with the how here is to make it your aim in life, to know your wife deeply where she is now. And that may mean removing labels that you may have inadvertently, unconsciously put on her in the past. That may mean being open to the fact that she is not the same person she was when you first married her. Even after a year, she's changed, she's grown, she's hardened, she's softened, she's stronger in some areas, weaker in others. This is a person who you can learn about and learn from for your entire life. It's a lifelong project. So that's the first thing I would say. And as a corollary to that, or a follow-up to that, I would just say no one else knows your wife like you do, or like you can. No one else understands her like you do or like you can. And so, in a certain way, reading a book about your marriage or listening to a sermon about your marriage is, in some ways, counterproductive. The majority of what you need to do is one-to-one adapting to what you learn about her and from her. And I would say some of this is experimentation. We men aren't very smart relationally. We catch on slow, if at all. And so experimentation and saying, well, I'm going to be different today. I'm going to try some things. I'm going to raise some topics, and I'm going to start some long-term conversations that we haven't started yet. And I'm just going to see what happens. Back to music or learning a sport or any kind of skill, there's this moment when I am surprised by something my violin does in response to the way I play it, the way I change, the way I experiment. This was happening just last night. There were sounds coming out that were good sounds, and I didn't know that those were there. I didn't know how to get them. I was just experimenting. And so I think one of the things that we don't say enough about marriage and about the how of this is It's a process. It's one day after another of trying things. And as you try things that if they're mistakes, they're retrievable. You don't bet the farm on tomorrow's experiment in your marriage. Don't do that. But you try a lot of little things. And you just soften yourself up to adapt intimately to who she is, because she's not the same as any other woman. And you were given to her in order to be that attentive, adaptive spouse, that flexible man who is determined to learn who she is. So I think that saying any more than that is probably going to be counterproductive, because I'm flying blind here. I don't even know who asked the question, much less how old is this marriage? Who's your wife, and all of that stuff. I don't know, but I do know this: that every husband who is determined to know his wife intimately, as determined to do that in the 32nd year, in the 50th year of marriage, as he was in the first date, that man is going to love his wife. And so that would be the best thing that I could say about how this works. It starts with your knowledge and flexibility with her as a unique individual. All the flexibility, all the love really comes from that one thing, and what Christ does through us in that relationship. And I would just say this about your comment about you wonder about a lot of other scriptures, this same thing. I know the what. I can read the words, but how do you do this? I would find as many model marriages as you can find. Look for them, collect models. And I don't mean, celebrity models or some YouTube star or whatever, some influencer. I mean people in your life, quiet people who maybe they're not up teaching, maybe they don't write books, maybe they don't talk much at all, but you see something solid in their marriage. Collect those people and make it your business in life as a couple to find out what they know. Hear their stories, because all of these things, not just in marriage, but in the Christian life generally, all of these things are learned in the doing, shoulder to shoulder, alongside other people. Excellent question. Here's another one, also excellent, and also kind of a big topic. I'll read the whole question here. Can you expand on the aspect of singleness? There are a lot of us who are single, and maybe our lives are as different as the married couples are from each other. What if there is no us when we come home? We have to figure out everything on our own. There have been a number of missionaries from this church, from BG, who were single and did amazing things because they have some freedom and specific callings. Susan Hay, Ruth May, Juanita Elwood, Betsy Risley. But here, I've known a lot of single people who have served and serve well, and some who have burned out. Also, we have different capabilities, and some of us do not have time. We have to work, and it's exhausting. It's an accomplishment just to make dinner. Who helps us figure this out? Well, there's so much that needs to be talked about there, and I can only sketch some answers to these important issues. Let me start with this. I'm reading this question as coming from someone who is not married, but not as somebody who was divorced with children, or has children and the spouse has passed on. There are lots of people who chose marriage and are now single and through no fault or choice of their own. And so all of the strain of that life, raising children alone, working and raising children alone, all of those issues, I'm going to have to bracket those and put those to one side. So I just, all cards on the table here, I'm approaching this as someone who has never married. And that population at BG is quite large. So let's think about one aspect of this, and that is there's no us when single people come home. My first take on that would be this. As I commented in the sermon, and maybe both sermons, married people in the scriptures teach that married people have burdens, single people do not have those burdens. And so I've made that comment, you've heard that before. Let me flip that around. With the burdens come compensations, like togetherness, like when I come home, there is an us, and there are resources beyond just me for deciding the future things in our household. Conversely, just as there are freedoms in singleness, there are also costs and limitations. Loneliness would be one of those. And this burden that you talk about here, that I don't have anyone intimately in my life at that level who I can form a partnership with to talk about these issues with. So my observation is this: every condition has freedoms and burdens, and you have put your finger on a very significant burden of singleness. So, I don't mean when I say that single people have freedoms that married people don't have, I don't mean, and Paul doesn't mean, to minimize the burdens. And this is a significant one. Another observation, I like your comment that single people they're all as different from each other as married couples are from each other. I think that's clearly true. Just take single people who are extroverts versus single people who are introverts. You're going to have radically different ways of life there as you build your social life, your networks at work, and all of those kinds of things. So we should not put one size fits all on this. What I take it you're asking is, how do we decide things like, what are my capabilities for serving? How do I deal with the stresses of work-life balance when work is getting to be like this, and my life where I live emotionally is getting to be like that? Who do we talk to about these things? I think we can put this in the context of you have a unique freedom and a unique burden. So the question is, how do you shore up the weaknesses that come with this burden of not having a partner? I would think differently about your social relationships, and I ask your pardon if I'm saying things that you're already doing. I hope you'll take those as affirmations that you're on the right track. And so, for example, you might make an extra effort to mix people into your social life and into your close companions who are very different from you. For example, if you don't have a married couple with children, move those, try to move in close to a family and see if they will admit you into their family life. And live life with them, even though they don't really approach life the same way you do, and they don't have the same outlook on things. They don't have the same problems. They don't have the same opportunities. If you don't have a married couple without children in your life, collect one of those. Move in close to them and see if you can't become part of a close relationship with them. What I'm saying is diversify your friend group. If you don't have people in your life who are significantly older than you, who you walk closely with, and you form a real partnership and collaboration with them, I would say you're really missing something. You probably need a widow in your life. I have spoken in the past about what widows know that other people do not know. And you can know it, but you got to know a widow, and you have to know them well. The same would be true of widowers. Those guys know stuff that other people don't know. And so I would say wherever you're stuck, kind of in your friend group, seeking out the same people and surrounding yourself with people who are at your level, economically, educationally, in work life, in age, all of that stuff, just mix it on up. Just diversify that and get closer to the people who are different from you. And I believe that as you do that, you will find a real strength coming into your life, the strength of walking shoulder to shoulder with other Christians and really learning from their stories, watching them go through tough things. And I think this kind of us, where it's the chosen family, not the given family. It's your group of loved ones who are deep friends, but not your wife or husband. I think there is a richness spiritually and in terms of just practical wisdom that you can find in that way. There is also love and belonging that you can find in profound ways. We're in a very competitive environment here with two colleges, Cornell and Ithaca College, and all of the associated career stuff that goes with that. I would caution you strongly against making your career the primary thing in your life, or making your ministry the primary thing in your life. Always leave room for love in your life and friendship and camaraderie. There's so much more we could say about this. You've given me a lot to go on, and yet I also feel like I'm just flying blind here on this one too. But it is interesting as I reflect on this. The answer to both of these questions is the same. Get close to other Christians. If one person doesn't seem open to that, just move right on to the next. Whatever you do, find those Christians, because I think what we're all learning is faith is a social activity, not an individual one. I hope this is helpful. Thank you for such great questions, and I will look forward to seeing you again on Sunday.